Good afternoon. My name is Ron Gardiner. I'm the Senior Packaging Technologist with CAFRE. That's the College of Agriculture, Food and Rural Enterprise. And this afternoon I'm sitting here with Philip McMurray. Hi, Philip.
Hello, yes. I'm Philip McMurray from the Single-Use Plastic and Waste Legislation team in the Environmental Policy Division in DAERA, and I'm here to talk about things plastic.
Very good. So, Philip, I've been a packaging technologist for nearly 20 years now with CAFRE. And in all my 20 years, I've never seen such a dynamic rate of change, say over the last 18 months. And without a doubt, the change has been driven by legislation. Could you tell me just a wee bit, say, about the current legislation as regards single-use plastics in Northern Ireland?
Yeah, well, I'll give you a wee bit of context. First of all, the executive in its New Decade, New Approach deal gave a commitment to create a plan to eliminate plastic pollution. And the DAERA minister had indicated to the Assembly back in November 2020 that he would look to ban 9 single-use plastic items, which was in line with similar proposals for Wales and Scotland. Then along came the Northern Ireland Protocol in December, and included within that were a limited number of articles of the EU Single-Use Plastic Directive, and we will have to introduce those in 2022. The articles that we have to introduce are Articles 2 to 7, 14 and 17. 2 and 3 are dealing with scope and definitions, and 14, 17 are about penalties and the dates of transposition, etc. The actual sort of meat of the articles that we have to do are 4, 5, 6 and 7.
Before I ask you, I suppose, about those articles, and it sounds like there's an awful lot of information for us all to take in. At this minute in time, the world is really topsy-turvy with COVID, but also as well with Brexit. As regards Brexit in Northern Ireland and the UK, how will what does Brexit mean as regards the regulations, or is NI sit on its own as regards the scope of these articles we're going to talk about?
Well, for now, the legislation will be just for Northern Ireland. And what I mean by that is that under the protocol, yes, we have to introduce regulations here in Northern Ireland to transpose those articles that I mentioned from the Single-Use Plastic Directive. But you know, the Scottish Government has already stated that it wishes to mirror the requirements of the Single-Use Plastic Directive, and the Welsh Government has recently consulted on banning 9 single-use plastic items contained within the directive. Indeed, DAERA itself for England has already implemented bans on 3 items: plastic cotton buds, straws and stirrers. And indeed, when he was the then DAERA Secretary of State, Michael Gove stated that the UK would meet or exceed EU environmental standards, and that itself would suggest that the UK will move towards many of the obligations contained within the directive over time.
Okay. You mentioned articles here, and I suppose here's where the technicality and the legality comes in. It was 4, 5, 6, and was there another one there as well, Philip? 7?
4, 5, 6, 7, yes.
Yeah, you wouldn't just take us through just each one of those, just Article 4 to start with, and maybe if there's something else I can ask you on top of that, that'd be great.
Okay, yeah. Well, Article 4 is a requirement to have an ambitious and sustained reduction, including targets, by 2026 in the consumption of single-use plastic beverage cups and food containers. So DAERA will have to produce a plan to set out what reduction we aim to achieve and how we will achieve this. Now, we can decide what we think is an ambitious target, but we're going to have to be able to justify that. So we can't just pluck anything out of the air. We will have to give justification for it. And the directive does include a number of suggestions for achieving these reductions, and some of the examples it gives are ensuring that single-use products are not provided free of charge, maybe imposing market restrictions on them, or ensuring that alternatives are provided that do not contain plastic when they're being sold.
Okay, so I suppose in a way that we've been through this already with the plastic carrier bag tax, and there was an awful lot of angst when that was initially launched. But that now seems, in my opinion, to have been successful, without a doubt. So would you see the same sort of thing happen, say, with coffee cups and takeaway food containers?
Yeah, well, you're absolutely right to say that the carrier bag levy has been very successful in reducing the number of single-use carrier bags. So yes, that certainly would suggest that that's one way of doing it, and we will look at that. It's one of the tools that we can use, but we haven't made any decisions in that. We will create a plan to do that.
Okay. Then the next article is Article 5, which is like specifics of items that are going to be banned. You couldn't just expand on which are the items that are going to be actively targeted, please?
Yeah, there are 10 items, 10 common single-use plastic items that will be banned as in accordance with this directive. And I'll just run through the list of them. They're the single-use plastic cotton buds, cutlery, plates, straws, beverage stirrers, balloon sticks, and then expanded polystyrene food containers for immediate consumption or takeaway, expanded polystyrene beverage containers, expanded polystyrene cups, and finally products made of oxo-degradable plastics. Oxo-degradable plastics are the types of plastics that break down essentially into smaller bits of plastic, but they're still plastic and they still leave plastic in the environment.
Very good. And I suppose you're already seeing a move to that already in some of the sort of the fast food outlets. I've stopped using plastic cutlery and like expanded polystyrene trays in preparation for Article 5.
Yes, there's a lot of public support. I mean, programs like Blue Planet and the War on Plastic, etc., have helped people become aware of the potential damage that plastic can have if it's not managed properly. So there is large support for this, and there have been shifts both in consumer patterns, but also in what producers are making. So, for example, it's very easy to find cotton buds now that don't contain single-use plastic. As you say, a number of takeaway outlets, etc., are moving away from plastic or polystyrene containers. They're looking for alternatives. So yeah, there's lots of moves going on with that.
Yeah,
it's good to see.
It's great to see. Yeah, it's very positive. But playing devil's advocate, Northern Ireland is a very small market in comparison, say, to the mainland UK or Scotland. Do you really think we can make a difference, and is it really worth the hassle of this change?
Well, you're right. Northern Ireland is a small market, but we're not doing this alone. I mean, this is happening in Ireland and across the EU, all the other EU member states. So it's not just ourselves in isolation doing this. And as I've already mentioned there, Scotland and Wales are already looking at banning items. England has already taken the first step and will potentially take further steps to ban other items as well. So I think it's going to be commonplace across the EU and the UK soon enough.
Yeah. Article 6 then, I would work with an awful lot of the major companies in Northern Ireland, the likes of Coca-Cola, the likes of Dale Farm, and other people who would use closures. Article 6 potentially has a large impact on companies and consumers as well. You wouldn't just like to explain a wee bit about the detail of Article 6?
Okay, well, Article 6 has two parts to it. The first part is, well, it's all about product design requirements, but the first part, as you mentioned there, is about closures. So by 2024, beverage containers will have to have lids and caps that remain attached to the container while it's in use. So examples of that, again, already on the market, there will be typically the sort of sports drinks bottles that will have a push-up top, or the flip-top lids on some bottles that we have, so that the cap remains on the bottle and doesn't come separate from the bottle. but they're only examples of that at the moment. By 2024, all drinks bottles will have to have caps and lids like that.
Okay.
And I know for carbonated drinks, that does pose an additional problem. But as I say, there's until 2024, so a few more years to work on getting that right.
Yeah, and companies are actively working now to pursue that, so which is great to see they're being proactive in Northern Ireland. In my opinion, Northern Ireland, sorry, go on, Philip.
I was going to say the second part of Article 6 is the requirement to include recycled plastic content within bottles.
Yep.
And there are two targets there. By 2025, all bottles made of PET will have to have at least 25% recycled content. And then by 2030, all beverage bottles will have to have at least 30% recycled content.
Okay. Northern Ireland producers are very proactive and undoubtedly will lead the charge. What will happen potentially if they meet the requirements of Article 6, but say producers in the UK don't? What will happen then? Will the guys in the UK be allowed still to sell product into Northern Ireland?
The simple answer is no. The legislation that will come into place will make it illegal to place items on the market in Northern Ireland that don't conform with the requirements of the directive. But again, as I've mentioned, this is going to be an EU-wide directive. So any of those producers that are making products for anywhere else in the EU and in Ireland will actually have to be meeting those rules by July of this year. We've got a little bit longer. We've got until 2022 to do it.
Okay.
So there's already going to be, sorry.
Yeah, but if we're exporting then, Philip, to any of those EU countries, we will have to comply.
Oh yes, absolutely. From July this year, if we're exporting anything to Ireland or the wider EU, it will have to meet those standards that are set down or laid out in the directive.
Yeah, so it's key and critical. Article 7 then, Philip, is one that I really would like to know about as well. So what does Article 7 involve?
Article 7 is about marking and labelling requirements. So there's to be a standardized labelling of products, many of which consumers may not actually realize contain plastic. And the first thing it'll have to advise the consumer, this product contains plastic, which, as I say, many may not realize. It will also have to advise them how to dispose of them properly and give them an indication of the potential negative environmental consequences if they don't dispose of the item properly. Now, what that boils down to is essentially a little logo that's going to appear on the packaging, and it will have three sort of sections to it. One showing it contains plastic, one showing how it should be disposed of, and one with a little picture illustrating what might happen if it's not disposed of correctly.
Okay, very
and
good.
that packaging information has been published actually in December. It's been agreed within the EU. It was published in December 2020 and it's available now. And it will apply to wet wipes, sanitary items, tobacco products containing, say, filters that have plastic in them, and to plastic drinks cups. Those are the main items that this labelling requirement will apply to.
And labelling, sorry to go back to Brexit, we were there at the start. You know, how will Article 7 be affected by the UK NI relationship and scenario? So will we have to have the same labelling requirements, or is there potential for slightly different?
Well, it's a bit like the product requirements that we discussed in Article 6 there. Anything coming onto the market in Northern Ireland will have to have that correct information and marking designed onto it. So any GB producer, if they want to sell it to Northern Ireland, it'll have to have that labelling. But equally, if they're going to want to sell it to Ireland or across the EU, they're going to have that labelling as well. So I understand it will probably be quite commonplace that some producers will just take the decision, we'll just put that marking on the product across the board.
Okay. And that's a lot to take in now, Philip. Is there anything more in the pipeline on top of that?
Well, yes, there's lots of things happening on plastic. As I mentioned at the start there, with the executive commitment to create a plan to eliminate plastic pollution. And we're not on our own. A lot of countries are trying to address plastic and plastic pollution problems. So, for example, from next April 2022, the UK is introducing a plastic packaging tax. And for all products that have less than 30% recycled content of plastic, where the plastic element is the biggest element of the product by weight, they'll have to pay they'll have to pay a tax if they haven't at least 30% recycled content. There's also on the way the extended producer responsibility scheme and the deposit return scheme. Those are being taken across the UK. The extended producer responsibility will be all 4 nations together. The deposit return scheme will be England, Wales, and Northern Ireland together, and Scotland will actually be introducing their deposit return scheme slightly earlier. They've gone a little bit ahead of us with that. So we're all going to be moving towards that over the next 3 or 4 years. And then I suppose an umbrella for all of that as well, of course, is the UK Plastics Pact, which is a voluntary agreement between major producers and companies, recycling organizations, etc., that are all banding together to see what they can do to reduce plastic and the problems that it creates. And again, they have 4 targets that they're trying to achieve by 2025.
Yeah, that's great, Philip. There's an awful lot for everybody to take in. CAFRE and DAERA are planning to have another webinar on Thursday, the 25th of March. There'll be a link at the end of this presentation to that webinar, which has been hosted by Invest Northern Ireland. And Philip and myself would like to encourage everybody listening to this to come along to that webinar, to listen to single-use plastics, extended producer responsibility obligations, and all the other things that are going to affect us for the next few years to come. And it's also an excellent opportunity for some live Q&A with myself and Philip and other industry experts. So Philip, thanks very much for your time. And for those of you watching and listening, thank you. And we hope to see you on the 25th of March.
So see you then. Thank you.
Bye now.
Bye-bye.